Trade and Sustainability under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, organized by Indian Research Scholars Association in collaboration with Human Sciences Research Council and the University of Johannesburg, South Africa. So, the theme of today's discussion is particularly significant at a time when questions of regional integration, sustainable development, economic cooperation, and the changing global economic order are receiving increasingly scholarly and policy attention. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement represents an important step towards strengthening intra African trade and economic integration, while also raising important questions about sustainability, inclusive development, inequality, environmental concerns, and the future of Africa in the global economy. The book New African Thinkers provide an important intellectual space to engage with these questions and, more importantly, to foreground African perspectives and scholarship on trade, development, and sustainability. So today's discussion therefore offers us an opportunity to not merely to discuss a book, but to engage with broader questions concerning Africa's economic transformation, regional integration, and the evolving architecture of global governance. So before we proceed, I would like to briefly introduce Indian Research Scholars Association, and in short, as we call it, IRSA. So it's an academic platform committed to bringing together research scholars, academics, experts, and students from diverse disciplinary backgrounds. So association seeks to promote a culture of research, dialogue, academic exchange, and knowledge dissemination by organizing lectures, conferences, workshops, book discussions, and other scholarly engagements. Through such initiatives, IRSA aims to create a meaningful academic connections not only within India, but also with scholars and institutions across the world. And today's collaboration with the Human Science Research Council and the University of Johannesburg is a reflection of precisely this commitment towards strengthening international academic dialogue and South-South intellectual engagement. So we are indeed privileged to have with us today an exceptionally distinguished panel of scholars and academic leaders. And with that note, I would like to welcome Dr. Vikash Kumar, who is the president of Indian Research Scholars Association, for the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, madam. So first of all, I would like to congratulate Professor Thokozani, who is my good friend, and also to the others for this edited volume. And thank you, Professor Thokozani, sir, for giving us opportunity to conduct a discussion on the book. I would like to welcome on behalf of the Indian Research Scholars Association my teacher and also my friend Professor Devnath Pathak sir, who is a associate dean in social science faculty, South Asian University, New Delhi. Professor Pathak had not teach me in the classroom, but beyond the classroom, Professor Pathak has taught me. So thank you so much, Professor Pathak sir, for accepting my invitation and request.
My
I would
pleasure.
like to
Thank you.
also welcome Professor Jondi. Professor Jondi is a dynamic scholar and he's a dean of the social science faculty, University of the Johannesburg, and also the chairman of the National Commission of the South Africa. He is also editor of the several journals. So on the behalf of the Indian Research Scholars Association, welcome to Professor John D. sir. And also I would like to welcome to Professor Saket Kushwaha sir and Professor A.K. Harun. I think they will not join with us because the they have some meetings and some other academic engagement, but we welcome on behalf of the participant and on behalf of the IRSA to Professor Saket ji and Professor Harun. I would like to welcome also to both panelists, Dr. Lusungu and Dr. Tipu, for accepting my request, and also all the organizing committee members who has taken this initiative. And I would like to also welcome all the participants. So I will not take more time because we have two, three intellectuals who will give their critical remark on the book. We have Professor Devnath Pathak sir, well-known sociologist, and Professor John D sir, well-known political scientist. So over to you, Dr. Manorma. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now, moving on, I would like to welcome Professor Thokozani Simelane from Human Sciences Research Council and University of Johannesburg, South Africa, for today's introductory remark. Over to you, sir. The floor is yours.
Program Director, and everyone who has find time to participate in this discussion. Greetings to all of you. This discussion actually came at a right time. However, it's very symbolic. It's symbolic in the sense that the umbilical link between South Africa and India has a history from Mahatma Gandhi and what he did for South Africa, which is something that is still in existence now. I assume, or I will assume, that all of us, we have the similar feeling and the similar perceptions. The discussion for today and what the book is addressing is, of course, significance for India in particular and for BRICS nations. For India, in the sense that when you look at the topic of the book and the program for Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, one can easily say that it's so much designed to cater for the interest of the African countries. However, it's not like that. In reality, it provides a basis of extending trade within the African continent and its partners. India is a significant investor in the African continent and in South Africa in particular. As we speak now, we are driving the Tata cars and many other models that are produced from India. So today's discussion basically will be to share the views and the ideas as to how we see India participating in the Africa Trade Agreement. We are going to be guided by the two particular chapters that have been published by the scholars. And of a critical significance is that the book itself is a compendium of the input from young scholars who are going to take over and be the one who see to it that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is equitably implemented and the partners of the African continent participate. So I was very much excited when I engaged and I made a request to Dr. Kumar and said, can you host this book and have these discussions? He agreed and he gave it a go-ahead. So let's look at this moment as a beginning, not as an end of what we need to do. That's all the introductory remarks I would like to put forward, and I hope that we are going to hear more from the presenters. Thank you, Program Director. Allow me to take everything back to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such insightful and thought-provoking insights on this for today's discussion and the introductory remark. So moving on, I would like to welcome Professor Siphamandla Zondi, who is a professor at University of Johannesburg and also Commissioner of National Planning Commission of South Africa. Over to you, sir.
Dr. Manorma, madam.
Greetings.
One minute, Professor Jondi. Sorry, pardon. Please invite to Dr. Shubhangi Amble. She will introduce Professor Jondi. Okay, yeah, please.
Okay. I would like
Greetings.
to.
Are you able to hear me?
So yes, you're audible, but before that, I'm supposed to invite someone else, another moderator of the session. So, Ms. Shubhangi, ma'am, are you here?
Yes, madam.
Yes.
It is okay.
Continue.
It is okay.
Please continue, ma'am. Okay.
Thank you. Namaste, everyone. My name is Shubhangi Amble. I'm from Maharashtra. It is my honor to introduce our distinguished guest and keynote speaker from South Africa, Professor Siphamandla Zondi, a highly respected scholar of politics, international relations, and African studies. Professor Zondi is a professor in Department of Politics and International Relations at the University of Johannesburg, South Africa. He is also closely associated with Institute for Pan-African Thought and Conversation, where he has played an important role in advancing scholarship and dialogue on African affairs, Pan-African thought, and decolonial perspectives. Professor Zondi holds a doctorate and a master's degree in African Studies from University of Cambridge, United Kingdom, and has a more than 2 decades of experience in research, teaching, policy engagement, and academic leadership. His research and intellectual interests include African development, regional integration, and governance, international relations, South African foreign policy, global governance, and decoloniality. He has worked extensively on questions concerning Africa's position in the changing global order and the possibilities of stronger regional and international cooperation. Professor Jondi has also held significant leadership positions beyond the university. He served as executive director of the Institute for Global Dialogue, and he has been involved with South Africa's National Planning Commission. He has also contributed extensively to BRICS related research and dialogue. At the University of Johannesburg, he coordinates the university's BRICS Research Network and is a founding editor of the Journal of BRICS Studies. His scholarly contribution is reflected in several important publications, including works on decolonial thoughts, BRICS cooperation, local governance, NGOs, and global power. Given today discussion and its focus on trade, sustainability, and the African context, Professor Jondi's scholarship and extensive experience make his presence particularly valuable. Professor Zondi, it is a great honor to have you with us. On behalf of the association, I warmly welcome to you the virtual stage and look forward to your valuable insight. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. That's very, very kind of you. I really appreciate it. Let me just also appreciate the association and appreciate your program director and the program director before you. A great greetings to Thokozani, Simelane, and my dear friend Dr. Kumar for all the kind invitation and kind interaction and all that. There's a lot that we can do together going forward. Let me just make a few critical remarks, and that we should relate to critical questions that we must ask and perhaps try and answer in relation to accelerating trade and sustainability in Africa in the context of ACFTA, AFCFTA, that are thoughts that are stimulated by the book that we are celebrating today. The book stimulates thinking about broader questions related to trade and investment and sustainable development as critical levers for change in Africa that have long been recognized by the whole of Africa. The book forces us to perhaps ask the question, what does sustainable trade mean in this context? Not the theory of it, not just the broad idea, not just the concept, but what does it actually practically mean? And how does the AFCFTA accelerate economic growth, industrialization, and environmental sustainability at the same time? This is a question not about finding out information, but it's a question about forcing those who are playing a critical role in leadership to pursue sustainable trade. Not just big trade, not just increased trade, not just massive trade, not just trade in volumes, but trade that is sustainable because it contributes to the quality of life of the people and the quality of economic development that societies in Africa experience. The second question relates to industrialization and value addition. And AFCFTA builds on old continental ideas relating to how do you turn the continent from being the supplier of primary products, primary crops, to the supplier and trade in value-added goods. And this also goes back to the meeting between the Africans and the Asians in Bandung, Indonesia, in 1955, where the matter of translating from economic growth to economic development was put forward. And that the continent has been pursuing this for a long period of time through what was called the Cairo process in the late 1970s to the Lagos Plan of Action in the 1980s, to the Abuja Treaty in 1991, which was a treaty towards establishing an African economic community. Now we had the Agenda 2063 in 2013, and out of it, this African Common Free Trade Area. And the question remains: how do we continue to pursue what we spoke about in 1955, and now pursue it with results? How can AFCFTA promote regional value chains that create decent jobs while reducing environmental risks? And how does this mechanism and relations with other parts of the world, including Asia, India, and other parts of the world, how do we work on these very critical sectors like agriculture, critical minerals, manufacturing, renewable energy, digital services, to offer the greatest opportunity for sustainable economic growth and development, improved quality of life for ordinary people? The third question relates to climate action and green trade. The continent is awaiting for greater movement in pursuit of a long-held consensus about the need to fight climate change in a manner that enables intra-Africa trade and Africa's trade with others, that improves regional supply chains, that improve green industrialization, that respond to carbon border adjustment mechanisms, that gives Africa a competitive advantage rather than make climate change a trade barrier. Now, the fourth one is in relation to trade, food security, and agriculture. Just as the book does, the continent has been talking, especially under the African common positions on food security, been talking about how the continent could strengthen food security and do it in a manner that also strengthens food sovereignty, the ability for the continent to take critical decisions in its interest to protect the continent's people from hunger and from shortage and from food insecurity. It is about understanding the barriers that continue to inhibit regional agricultural trade and food distribution mechanism, because the continent has abundance of food, but food is not evenly spread across the region, and that relates to commercial, political, and social mechanisms that are used to do that. And how do you build sustainable farming practices that improve both resilience and export competitiveness? And that's the continent's biggest challenge. The fifth is in relation to energy and just transition. And energy and just transition is absolutely critical for the continent that has abundant transition energy resources, from the critical just transition minerals that everybody wants, to having abundant sunshine, abundant water systems. The continent has a huge water system. I think 4 big water systems. Everybody knows about the Nile, but few people know about the Inga. Few people know about the Zambezi. Some people may not know about the Mano river systems in West Africa. So there are many of these water systems, a lot of these different opportunities for the energy transition. Now, how does trade support Africa's just energy transition? And that would relate to how regional trade should play some role in developing and buttressing regional energy industry, regional renewable energy industries, and green manufacturing. That the countries that are rich in critical minerals need to ensure that they support local industrial development, and that will augur well for the continent. And these countries are found in every region of the continent. It's a continent with abundance in critical just transition minerals. The sixth one for me is the continent's big discussions in relation to digital trade and innovation. And again, this book forces us now to think about how could digital trade contribute to more sustainable and more inclusive economic growth and development, and thinking about what infrastructure investment must be made now to enable such an eventuality, and how artificial intelligence and technology may be governed in a way that support a sustainable digital trade, inclusive and sustainable trade generally. That is going to be a critical question that's going to be with us for a long period of time. It's also a question that requires dedicated work, writing, discussions on its own. The seventh for me is the idea that all these matters related to trade and investment in our context is supposed to lead to or support inclusive development. How do you have women-owned, youth-owned, small businesses participate more effectively in energy and trade value chains so that they are sustainable, so that they affect the largest number of people on the continent, and so that it has meaning right on the ground. And that involves thinking about what role will informal cross-border trade, which is mostly women, mostly young people, in all of this, because that will help also the continent pursue prosperity, but also overcome immediate poverty challenges. The eighth one for me is, again, the book also helps us to tackle all these issues that we talk about would require at least 3 things. The first thing is governance and policy coherence, that you need trade policies to sufficiently align with one another, but in relation to sustainable development strategies. And to do that, you would need a greater effort towards coherence among trade policies, and that all trade policies do not dislocate this agenda around sustainable energy and trade integration. You need this now, and that's what the continent has spoken about since 1963, and it's something that we need to pursue. So we need governments to better coordinate their trade, industrial, climate, energy, and investment policies. And you need to all encourage states to do that coordination work a lot more, and use the African Common Free Trade Area requirements to enhance this, because that's what the AFCFTA requires. The 8th, which is the second condition required to achieve all the other 7 things, it's finance and investment. We need to look up at innovative financing mechanism, financing for development, financing for economy, financing for trade and investment needs to change in order to help us address the challenges that are related to renewable energy and trade on the continent. And this is about African development finance institutions as well, mobilizing greater investment towards this area to financing that will boost effective regional value chains. There is financing that includes public-private financing, that includes international investment, foreign direct investment, but that is directed towards these goals. The third dimension that will help us achieve the seven things that we pointed out earlier is our ability to measure success a little better, developing clear and measurable indicators. We who are in the science environment must help the environment to develop mechanisms, indicators to better measure the efforts towards sustainable trade and investment and energy development on the continent, including measuring environmental and social impacts, including drawing up lessons. We did do a lot more work in developing dashboards and developing indices and developing mechanisms for measuring this. There's very little work on measuring the progress of AFCFTA, and it's a huge opportunity. It's a challenge that looks at it. Now, in closing, therefore, we need to keep thinking about how the AFCFTA should look like in 10 years' time if it's successfully advanced. So we need some bit of scenario work. There's great need for, in this research environment on the continent, for scenario work that looks at where things would be if we implement it, or things would be if we implement half the thing, where things would be if we implement just a quarter of what it is. And that will also help us to identify which are the biggest obstacles out there and what are the critical policy reforms that need to be taken now. It will also help us as research institutions, as universities, as think tanks, as NGOs, as civil society, to work out how do we contribute using evidence-based tools towards the achievement of sustainable trade and energy policies on the continent. And it did also help us to work out what new partnerships needs to emerge in order to go do that. So with that, I just want to congratulate the editors of this book and the authors who put it together and the institutions behind it for a sterling work that has been done, because it's great, because it doesn't keep us only talking about its content, but it also stimulates our thinking about the broader issues. It instigates and it provokes us to think about the big questions, such as the 7 big questions that I have suggested today. So we can really just say congratulations, well done. This great work is done. I hope that out of it you will generate blogs, out of it you generate short podcasts that explore small little issues. I hope that out of it you generate policy briefs to help policymakers digest the rich content that is there. I hope out of it will generate a version for kids, a kid's version for this book, and I also hope out of it that you will try and get creative work, a novel, a work of poetry, and all that, just to make sure that the ideas reach as wide as it's possible. Congratulations again. You have done a great work. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Zondi, for your valuable insights. Now we will move ahead with the introduction of a chief guest, Professor Saket Kushwaha, Honorable Vice Chancellor of University of Ladakh and former Vice Chancellor.
Will join later.
Yes,
Sir,
yes.
join later. Please invite.
Is he not here?
Yes, both panelists.
Okay. So now moving on, I would like to invite our first panelist, Dr. Deepu Mashifane, who's from University of Venda, South Africa. Over to you, Dr. Deepu Mashifane.
Okay, good morning, afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, Doctor, you are, and if possible, then please open your video.
Oh, okay. Is it on now?
Yeah. Please.
Perfect. Good morning, afternoon, distinguished colleagues and members of the panel. I'm basically on chapter 11 of the book that was recently published by the Human Sciences Research Council. So under the chapter, basically, we are talking about the induction of seed storage proteins mutants through mutation technology in teparipine. So first and foremost, I think all of us were very familiar with climate change. So when we talk about climate change, food security, agricultural development, we often focus on some of the major crops such as your maize, your wheat, rice, as well as soybean. But then for us, we opted to start with a different question to say, are we fully using the crops that we already have in terms of the characteristics that are suited to some of the challenges that we are facing? So the book chapter focuses on teparipine, which is an underutilized legume with considerable potential, of course, as a climate smart as well as a nutritional crop. So more importantly, for this specific engagement, I believe I'm supposed to link the chapter as to how we can be able to contribute as well as some benefits that we can have between Africa as well as India. So then the central message will be that teparipine should not only be viewed as just an underutilized crop, but then as a platform that we can be able to use in terms of innovation, breeding, as well as international collaboration. So then the question is, why teparipine? So we know that in the context of climate change, teparipine is one of those crops that are of particular interest. Firstly, we know that it's highly drought tolerant and can be able to perform very well under water limiting conditions. Secondly, it's resource efficient, so that makes it much more attractive in terms of production systems where water and soil fertility can be quite limiting. Thirdly, it's one of the protein-rich legumes, which then gives it much more important in terms of the nutritional dimension. So with this, then we had a question to say, how can we then be able to use modern breeding approaches in terms of unlocking the crop's potential? So that was basically the motivation behind our study. So what we did is we used the mutation breeding in terms of generating new genetic variations, whereby we worked with specifically 3 teparipine genotypes that we treated with different concentrations of ethyl methane sulfonate, or EMS in short. And then the objectives of our chapter was then to create useful variation that we could potentially be able to select for improved nutritional characteristics, particularly your seed protein content. So we also then were able to evaluate your successive generations, and then we assessed the protein accumulation using crude seed protein as well as the SDS page. So more importantly, the reason behind this study was that we understand that your conventional breeding methods can sometimes be constrained when the available genetic variation within a crop is very limited. So mutation breeding then sort of provided another way of introducing variation that we as breeders can be able to subsequently evaluate as well as select. So from our findings, we observed that the protein accumulation was substantially increased in terms of our genotypes. And then we had a genotype that was able to have almost 24.23% of the crude protein under the 1.5% EMS treatment in the M4 generation. So, but then that was not the only genotype. We saw that even genotype 4 was able to have a protein that now were able to increase from 14.9%, 19% to almost 18%, while genotype 6 were able to increase the protein from just 12% to almost 18.73%. So rather than looking only at these highest percentages in terms of the proteins, we then wanted to see the seed storage protein profiles, whereby we were able to see that one particular observation, interesting observation, was a distinctive protein, which was the 20 kilodalton protein in genotype 3 that was not there in the other genotypes. So this then gives us a very useful component in terms of our future investigations. So then the next steps will be then to be able to identify some of these proteins that we're able to see that were different in terms of the seed storage proteins, using your approaches like your LCMS, and then we'll also need to validate the stability in terms of the performance of these mutants across various environments and generations. So the question then comes to say, why should then this matter to India? So the answer is that most of the challenges that we are actually addressing, they are not basically not uniquely African, but we know that the Indian landscape, they are also facing some of these challenges. So we know that you are also dealing with issues of water scarcity, climatic variability, pressures on your small-scale farming productions that need also affordable sources of dietary protein. So then this is able to create an opportunity for our tertiary bean research to move beyond your geographical boundaries. So we see that through research, we also see that India actually has extensive experience in terms of pulse research, like for instance, your move beans as well as your pigeon peas. And we see that you guys, you also have an extensive experience in crop improvement, biotechnology, your value addition in terms of food processing, as well as agricultural innovation. So we understand that you could be able to potentially play an important role in taking this research from just an interesting genetic resource towards a more complete crop improvement and value chain strategy. So some of the ways with which our Indian counterparts can be able to contribute. Firstly, I talked about crop improvement, whereby Indian institutions, since they have a strong expertise in terms of genetics, genomics, your molecular breeding, as well as biotechnology, this could then be able to complement the genetic resources as well as some of the field-based research that we are conducting in Africa. Secondly, we are looking into agricultural technology, whereby we can be able to investigate how tertiary bean performs under different water management as well as low input crop systems. Thirdly, we see from research that you have a robust seed system, so we can be able to develop from just a promising genotype being the first step. We can be able to incorporate this by a situation whereby we know that we need systems that we can be able to use in terms of seed multiplication, your quality controls, variety developments, and eventually farmer access to these improved genotypes. The fourth component is value addition, whereby we see that tertiary bean is basically a protein-rich legume. So then this should not simply just stop at grain production, but then we should also be able to have an opportunity to investigate how we can use the flour into maybe making other protein-rich foods, your blended products, as well as other form of nutritional value addition. And the last one is basically looking at capacity development, whereby we can be able to collaborate through joint research projects, your postgraduate training, research exchanges, as well as shared facilities. Now, how can then, from all this study, then what can India be able to benefit from this? So, otherwise, the main component should be that collaboration must be reciprocal. So, India should not be simply viewed as a source of technology, and Africa should not simply be viewed as a source of genetic material, but both sides have something valuable in terms of their contribution. So with us, we know that we can be able to produce or provide diverse genetic resources. We have unique production environments and field conditions where your drought and other stresses can actually be evaluated. And then India, we know that it can be able to bring complementary expertise in crop improvement, biotechnology, processing, as well as agricultural innovation. So this then creates a genuine opportunity in terms of co-innovation. So for India, collaboration could provide access to a new genetic material and new research questions, of course, around your climate resilient pulses. But then for African researchers, collaboration can provide access to advanced technologies, expertise, and potentially larger research networks. So this then ultimately, the ultimate objective should be therefore to move from technology transfer to technology co-development. So if then we are to move from research to impact, then we need to indicate that we should move from just having these promising mutants in a research laboratory to actually solutions that we can be able to provide for farmers. Firstly, we need to validate the promising mutants that we have studied so far. Then we need to characterize those proteins that we had identified and understand some of the mechanisms underlying what we observed in terms of the variation. After that, we need the multi-environment testing to determine whether the traits remain stable under different environmental conditions. And then from there, we'll need to connect the crop with food processing and value addition mechanisms. At the same time, we need functional seed systems so that these improved materials that we have can actually reach farmers. And finally, we need to connect production with your markets. So this is where then the research becomes much more larger than just plant breeding. So in order to conclude here, I will say the study demonstrated that an underutilized crop such as terpari bean contains a considerable potential in terms of climate-smart agriculture. So through mutation breeding, we're able to generate useful variations in seed protein content. And then the bigger outcome is that we have demonstrated a pathway for unlocking genetic potential in an underutilized crop. And that pathway can be strengthened through international collaborations. So Africa otherwise brings genetic resources, diverse environments, and some of the most important agricultural challenges, whilst India brings complementary expertise, technologies, capacity in research, as well as value addition properties. So together, these strengths, they can support the development of crops that are more resilient, more nutritious, and more relevant to future food systems. So with this, I will end here for now. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Deepu Mashifane, for your valuable insights and thoughtful contribution to today's discussion. Now, moving on, I would like to welcome our next panelist, Dr. Lusungu Molefe from University of Johannesburg, South Africa. Over to you, Dr. Lusungu Molefe.
Good morning, and I know it's afternoon on your side. I'd just like to also start by saying that I am still a PhD student at the University of Johannesburg.
If
Yes.
possible, then please open your video because.
Oh, I'm having very interconnecting problems. So if I put on my video, I'll probably you won't be able to hear me.
Okay.
Yeah. So I am a PhD student, so I still don't have my doctorate, but it's very nice to still be called doctor at this point. I'd like to first start by thanking Dr. Thokozani and Dr. Vikash for giving me this opportunity to present my book chapter, which was on how South Africa can transition from coal to a hydrogen economy, because as it is, 80% of South Africa's energy needs come from coal, which makes South Africa one of the most emitting countries of greenhouse gas emissions. And as it is, Africa is already the hardest hit by the effects of climate change. And with South Africa, those effects make it harder for us to produce our food, for us to clean our water, and then also in turn, produce that same electricity, because electricity in South Africa is undersupplied and it's unreliable. We have still at least 3 million South Africans who do not have access to electricity. So at this time, it's seeing as it's very vital for us to expand our electricity access by trying to transition from coal to a hydrogen economy, because hydrogen is increasingly being seen as a viable way to decarbonize our economies and obviously abate, the effects of climate change. Hydrogen obviously does not exist in nature in its elemental form, so we can use electrolyzers to remove it from water so we can get hydrogen. And when we use just renewable resources to do that, it makes green hydrogen a very viable source to make our energy generation clean. So obviously, this is something that needs a lot of finance. It needs a lot of collaboration with other countries. We're seeing that before we had a just transition partnerships with countries from the US, the UK, and then the US decided to withdraw its funding from the partnership. So we're seeing more than ever that we need more collaboration with countries that are able to help us through this transition. And I think that's where obviously India comes in, because it's one of our allies and our partners. And obviously, this is also under the framework of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And obviously, India cannot become a member because it's not an African country. But how it can benefit is obviously by partnering with South African firms that manufacture within the African free trade market. And we can establish production facilities or joint ventures in South Africa that would allow Indian investors to serve African markets while also complying with the rules of the agreement. South Africa can serve as India's gateway into African clean energy markets by, exporting green hydrogen, fuel cells, renewable energy technologies to other African countries under the African Free Trade Agreement. Also, another way we can benefit as two countries is that because India is emerging as one of the world's growing renewable energy markets through substantial investments in solar, in wind, in battery and green hydrogen, through programs called the National Green Hydrogen Mission. These have obviously accelerated domestic capabilities in electrolyzer manufacturing, hydrogen production, and clean energy technologies. South Africa can also benefit from India's experience through joint research programs between India and South African universities, research institutions, and this can accelerate innovation in hydrogen production, electrolyzers, fuel cells, and energy technologies. Also, India could gain access to South Africa's expertise in the platinum-based hydrogen technologies through initiatives such as the Hydrogen South Africa program, and this could strengthen collaborative innovation and technological development. As my colleague also touched on this, there's the skills development and capacity building, which both countries require new technical skills for hydrogen production and clean energy technologies. So India has developed extensive technical training programs through its institutions specializing in renewable energy and engineering and manufacturing. So collaboration could include student exchanges, joint postgraduate programs, technical training, industrial internships, research fellowships, and knowledge sharing between the universities. So these initiatives would strengthen human capacity required for the hydrogen economy. We also have the critical minerals and industrialization, because India possesses advanced manufacturing capabilities, but also they depend heavily on imported critical minerals. So strategic partnerships could therefore combine South Africa's mineral resources with India's manufacturing expertise to establish integrated hydrogen value chains. So instead of just exporting the raw minerals, South Africa could expand domestic beneficiation through joint ventures that manufacture the fuel cells, the electrolyzers, the battery components that are required. So such partnerships could also generate employment and strengthen industrial competitiveness in both countries, because as much as it is a just transition for the energy sectors, we also want to look at how best we can address the social inequalities that exist in both countries. So all of these components could help us both address those and also expand energy access and energy needs. Yeah, I will stop there because we can go on, but we have started late, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Walifai, for your valuable contribution to the discussion. And now we will proceed to our presidential remarks. And we are honored to have with us Professor Devnath Pathak, Associate Dean, Social Science and Faculty of Sociology at South Asian University, New Delhi. So for that, may I now invite Dr. Shubhangi to kindly introduce Professor Devnath Pathak to the audience. Dr. Shubhangi, over to you.
Well, thank you, Manorma. It's my privilege to introduce our guest and president of this book discussion program, Professor Devnath Pathak, sir. Sir is a renowned sociologist, academician, and a scholar from India. Professor Pathak is a founding faculty member of the Department of Sociology at South Asian University in New Delhi, and currently serves as the Associate Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences. He has been associated with South Asian University since 2011, where he teaches postgraduate and doctoral students and contributes extensively to academic administration, teaching, and research. Professor Pathak completed his PhD in sociology from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi in 2011, following his MPhil and master's degree in sociology and sociological anthropology from GNU. His academic interests are remarkably interdisciplinary. His scholarship focuses particularly on cultural sociology, folklore and performance, popular culture and media, cinema, music, and theater, as well as theoretical and methodological questions in the social sciences. His research also engages with education, youth, resistance, visual communication, and cultural politics. Professor Pathak is the author and editor of several important books. His works include Living and Dying, meaning in Maithili folklore, in defense of the ordinary, everyday awakenings, and edited volumes such as Seeing South Asia, Visuals Beyond Borders, and Neighborhood and Neighborhoodiness in Urban South Asia. He's also one of the editors of the journal Society and Culture in South Asia, published in collaboration with SAGE. His academic journey also includes prestigious international fellowships, including the Charles Wallins Fellowship at Queen's University, Belfast, and BRE Fellowship at Brown University, Professor Pathak brings together sociology, culture, literature, folklore, and contemporary social thought in a very distinctive manner. We are truly honored to have him with us today. Sir, we warmly welcome you to this book's discussion and look forward to your valuable insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubhangi. Uh, so, this is such a wonderful discussion on this book going on. I congratulate the author of the book, and I am glad to be part of it. I'm thankful to the association which has given me this opportunity to be here in this panel. And a few things which are very important, which came to my mind while listening to the conversation here. Obviously, I have not read the book, so I would primarily rely on what I have heard in this session. One very important thing, and which is also based on my understanding of what is going on in the discourses on sustainability worldwide today. The discourses on sustainability worldwide today seems to be transaction, which is a framework of, which is very state-centric framework. To make it very clear, it's a framework which is curated by, cultivated by, nurtured by state, which may be important framework, no doubt about it. But this framework is also exclusive in the sense that it does not take into account one very fundamental fact, that humans do not collaborate just because they have trade interest. Any collaboration which is on the linear scheme of trade, transaction, production of this gas, that battery, that machine, or this know-how from this institution, and then sharing it, disseminating it across the globe, that alone does not qualify for the kind of concerted collective effort that is required for sustainability. There is this big limitation in the larger discursive framework in which we discuss sustainability. And I'm saying this with an admission, with an acceptance of the fact that, of course, this is important to understand where is what produced, who knows what, and how to utilize that knowledge in different parts of the world. This is certainly no doubt about the fact that we need to have very good, symmetrical, equality-based exchanges of knowledge. No doubt about that. But then this framework alone would not satisfy the need of spreading the awareness or making collective efforts towards sustainability. As long as we are stuck to this framework, our understanding of how to make people participate in sustainability programs would be little less solid. Why am I saying this? I derive my insight, my inspiration from one of the earliest modern African thinker. We have all read Frantz Fanon, and we have read with ideological excitement. We have read it with certain kind of colonial enthusiasm, and that is where till date we find Frantz Fanon so relevant. And with that, insight, one begins to ask as to what should be the role of the wretched of the earth in the larger sustainability actions that we are trying to envisage for, be it Africa, Asia, South Asia, India, wherever, right? We need to ask this question precisely because at the end of the day, the actors in sustainability, the recipients of sustainability would be the people, would be the communities. And I feel that in this largely trade-dominated understanding of sustainability, be it of energy-related planning for sustainability or other kind of resource-related planning, in all of them, the community question is either absent or just too marginal. to play any significant role. In this kind of state-centric framework, we do not even get to understand as to how universities or institutions of higher education are not the only places where we have sufficient knowledge system which can inform us, which can prepare us for the sustainability of environment, the sustainability of livelihood. It's also with the various communities, various kind of, ethnic communities, tribal communities, communities which can be squarely put in the category of, vernacular communities. And that is a challenge for all of us coming from different kind of, disciplinary background, sociology or not sociology, economics or climate change studies program, whatever program we call it. That is where we have to rethink our basic framework, basic premise of our discussion. Once again, I'm repeating that the thinking along the line of trade and commerce, production and distribution, and there is absolutely no doubt about the necessity of the even distribution, the equal distribution of resources. So all these things are very important. But I feel that, it will be great injustice to some of these, great thinkers who taught us long ago, right at the dawn of freedom for these, when we were colonies. Right then we were told very clearly that a very different kind of idea of action has to emerge in the post-colonial context. And as Franz said, and I invoke him very often in my several discussions, and that is Franz Fanon's idea was that he never uses the word collaboration. Instead, for him, the more reliable word was solidarity, and it was solidarity in action. As long as we have this very formal kind of very bureaucratic formulation of collaboration, as long as these collaborations are subject to the scrutiny and mercy of multinational giants, this collaboration would not result into very fruitful, very results on the ground, which will be empirical evidences for any kind of step forward toward the goals of sustainability that we have, right? So with this, I understand this is a very critical, but I decided to say this in this forum because I believe we need to come up with this idea that action in solidarity is far better than a very neutralized kind of very self-motivation driven kind of the term collaboration that stands for. We need to have that solidarity of those in all of us in post-colonial societies who have abundance of knowledge system. We have never figured out that knowledge system as to how it contributes toward executing our programs to achieve sustainability goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your insightful presidential remarks, and we sincerely appreciate your time and contribution. So as we now come towards the conclusion of this enriching session, may I now invite Dr. Lokpa Tamang to kindly deliver the vote of thanks. Dr. Lokpa Tamang, over to you.
Thank you, Manorma ma'am. Thank you so much. Respected all the distinguished guests, panelists, authors, fellow academicians, research scholars, and my dear participants. It is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks at the conclusion of this very enriching book discussion on new African thinkers, trade, and sustainability under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that is organized by the International Scholars Association in our collaboration with the Human Sciences Research Council, University of Johannesburg, South Africa. At the very outset, I sincerely thank all the distinguished dignitaries for graciously accepting our invitation and being here with us today. My special thanks to our chief guest, Professor Kushwaha in attendance, our guest honor, Professor Harun A.K. in attendance, our chair, Professor Devnath, keynote speaker, Professor Siphamandla Zondi, and I also extend my thanks to Professor Thokozani Simelane for his introductory remark. My special thanks and gratitude to all the panelists for their thought-provoking observation, and to all the authors and contributors of the book for providing us with such an important work for discussion. My special appreciation goes to our coordinator, Dr. Vikash Kumar, President of Indian Research Scholars Association, who coordinated all this whole program, and to Ms. Manorma Kuntal, our moderator and host, and Dr. Shubhangi Amble for moderating the session. And I would like to thank all the organizing members or executive committee members and members of various wings of Indian Research Scholars Association for their valuable support and hard work behind the program. A special word of thanks to all the participants, academicians, research scholars from India and abroad. Your and participants have enriched this academic dialogue. Finally, we sincerely thank the University of Johannesburg and the Human Sciences Research Council for this valuable collaboration. We hope this association will grow further and will lead to many more academic exchange, joint initiatives, and meaningful collaboration in future. With these few words, I once again thank everyone for being part of this program and for making this academically enriching and memorable session. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very
sir.
much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining
I
us. Thank
appreciate
you.
Vikash, Dr. Vikash, all of you,
Okay.
Thokozani, Professor.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, sir.
We thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you very much.